Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Danny Show. Today, joining me in the studio is Luca Rosano, who is my first guest on my show. He is a prominent sports content creator, Raptors analyst, and YouTube personality with a passion for all things basketball, known for his engaging takes on the NBA and his in-depth coverage of the Toronto Raptors. Luca brings fresh energy and strong opinions to the conversation. He's here to break down the 2025 NBA free agency and what's ahead for the Toronto Raptors this upcoming season. He has obtained a degree in journalism from the University of Guelph Humber, and now Mr. Luca Rosano joins me live. How are you doing, Luca?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on, Daniel. Always a pleasure to be on the show.
No problem, man. Thank you so much for doing this again. I appreciate it. Let's start with the Raptors. What do you think about the Raptors' move so far this offseason, signing Sandro Mamukelashvili to a 2-year deal, drafting Colin Murray Boyles at the number ninth pick, and Elijah Martin at the number 55th pick? How do you assess the Raptors offseason so far?
Yeah, coming in, we knew it was going to be a quiet off season. Of course, there wasn't going to be any heavy lifting. Their biggest move was, of course, trading for Brandon Ingram at the deadline. They got him
Right.
locked up before we even entered free agency. So expectations coming in were just the draft and obviously trying to get a backup big. And I think they addressed all those things. You look at the draft, Colin Murray Boyles. Initial reaction was a little bit of a surprising pick just because you look at the redundancy of the type of skill set that he has. However, you saw him play during Summer League. A lot of the great things he can bring to the table. Defensively, I think he's going to be an absolute stud. You see what he brings there. He can be elite with his, getting to the rim, finishing at the rim, kind of just cleaning up the glass, being a bulldozer, getting downhill. Of course, the biggest question is his shooting. We've seen it, even his combine video. That's going to be a work in progress. So I think Raptors fans have to have patience with his shooting. But you look at what he brings in all the other attributes of the game, I think he can end up being a guy who can contribute to winning right away. And I think that's what the Raptors saw in this pick. He was the best available player when the Raptors were on the board. They
Yeah.
don't go for need. They went for somebody who they feel is going to be the best player in a couple of years from now from that position. So I think the CMB, the selection of CMB, I think is going to end up being a nice pick for the Raptors. Just have to have time with it. Just have to have a little bit of patience with his shooting and just how his offense is going to come around. And then Elijah Martin, just very, very athletic. Like he's a guy who can also shoot it, which I think is nice. I mean, we saw him have that Stando game, first league of summer league. He had
Right.
the huge poster dunk, and I think that's a guy that's obviously going to have his work cut out for him to get some minutes. He is a smaller player, and he's more of a combo guard than a traditional point guard. But I think he's going to have a great opportunity with this team to try to get some minutes down the line, but he's going to figure to spend a lot of time with 905. So that too was a little bit of a surprising pick because I thought for sure the Raptors were going to go for a big there.
Right.
And then Mamu, I think, was nice. The situation that the Raptors find themselves in. They obviously re-signed or locked up Pirtle. They needed a backup big.
For
And
sure.
you look
Definitely.
at what Mamu brings, a little bit of a different. It is a different dynamic than what Pirtle brings. They do
Right.
have a stretch big who can shoot, and I think that kind of big men is what you need with Scotty Barnes and Brandon Ingram. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He had a huge game that I recall against the Knicks where he just
Right.
went bonkers in like 20 minutes. Scored upwards, what was it, like 31 points. So like he definitely is going to have a big opportunity here. He slates in as the Raptors big as of now. So I think overall, like you look at what they did, considering how limited they were. Yeah, like I think they addressed what they needed to address, and I think the younger players are going to be exciting to watch, particularly Colin Murray Boyles, who I think is going to be in the rotation as the backup to Scotty Barnes
Right.
as we open up the season.
Right. I completely agree with you. I think with the Mamu signing, the Raptors do get a floor spacing big as opposed to Jakob Poeltl, a big that can shoot the three-pointer, which I'm happy and looking forward to this upcoming season. But overall, Luca, what do you make of like the Raptors free agency overall? Do you think like they acquired the right players, draft the right players? Do you feel like they missed out on a couple players like I really wanted them to get like a shooting guard, small forward, veteran to come off the bench to help these young guys learn the game more. And What do you think?
Yeah, I think because like you look at the cap situation, like they didn't have any flexibility with the free agent market. Like they couldn't
Right,
go there and bring in a huge addition for their bench. They're kind of betting and banking on this group to justify them about to be a tax team after game 82 of the season. So
right,
they're betting big on these guys. And I think that's what makes the season so fascinating. I think it could go either very, very well or very, very poorly. We haven't seen these guys play with each other, so they didn't necessarily need to gamble and roll the dice. I mean, their most plausible pathway of making a big upgrade, like you said, bringing in a wing was via trade. Of course,
right,
we did hear some RJ Barrett buzz around
right.
the draft with number 9 being floated around, but nothing came to fruition. I don't expect the trade's going to happen at this point. I think the Raptors are going to see what this group can do. And if they don't meet expectations, because there's certainly going to be expectations when you got a group making this
Definitely.
kind of money, then we can see some changes at the deadline via trade. But I'm okay with what they did. Like, of course, the Raptors found themselves in all of the big star rumors, the Giannis stuff that died down
Right.
quickly, Kevin Durant, and then after that, obviously was off the table. I knew it was going to be a relatively quiet offseason. And coming in, that was really my stance on things. I knew the draft was going to be ultra important. Which overall, like again, I was surprised with the selections that they made, but I am going to give it the benefit of the doubt. So I don't really have any like critical things to say about the draft. I do like the Mamu signing. So yeah, I think this was overall an offseason that I was okay with just because coming in, I knew there wasn't going to be anything major to be done. Like we kind of already knew what this team was going to be
Right.
at the end of this past season, and we knew
Right.
this offseason was going to be very quiet.
Definitely. You mentioned RJ Barrett being in the rumor mill. Do you think he's going to take the next step forward for this team to either come off the bench or start alongside Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes in the starting lineup? Or will he just play like he did last season and be, dealt ultimately at the trade deadline come winter?
Yeah, it's one of those storylines I'm most looking forward to. I think RJ Barrett is a solid player. He had a career year,
Right,
but how is he going to fit? I think that's where I have my questions. Is he going to be able to fit with Scotty and Brandon Ingram? I think his usage is going to go down. I mean, in theory, you would think it's going to go down because Brandon Ingram's now there. You
right,
want Scotty Barnes to still be a big part of the offense. I mean, he is set up as your guy. How is RJ going to fit in and all of that? He does a lot of his work, attacking downhill, kind of in the same areas as like Brandon Ingram and Scotty. Can he become a more consistent outside shooter? And
right,
then I think defensively, he doesn't get enough credit. Like he did show his commitment to that end, which is good because I think like ideally the type of player you need in this lineup with Scotty and Bi is a 3-and-D type player, which is why like I really found the Derek White rumors interesting that maybe the Raptors were inquiring about a
right.
player like him or even Drew because like you look at this lineup, that's what it's asking for. But with
Exactly.
that being said, I think RJ, he's aware of it. He's aware of the outside noise, people questioning the fit. The Raptors are gonna let it play out, and we're gonna see like quickly how this fit looks. Like it's not gonna
Definitely.
take
Yeah.
long. Within the first couple of weeks, we're gonna see how is Barrett adapting. Is he able to develop more of a consistent outside shot? Like he had a really good stretch last year, shooting it, and obviously, like he was at times like the most aggressive player for the Raptors offensively. His usage was really, really up. So I think that will go down a bit, like his usage on offense, but we'll see if he's able to commit defensively and be a consistent enough shooter where he can be an asset alongside Scotty and Bi rather than a liability.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think RJ needs to understand that his role is definitely adjusting and it's definitely changing for sure with now, like you said, Ingram and Barnes play in the same areas that Barrett plays, right? And if Barrett transitions into a three-point shooter, an outside shooter, and really just takes that full leap, I think the Raptors will definitely be a play-in team, a playoff team. Where do you think the Raptors will stand ultimately at the end of the upcoming season? Do you think like they're a solid play-in team, or do you feel like they're going to squeak into the play-ins? Give me your take.
Yeah, it's so tough to say, and I've been going through it as well. And obviously, the off season not officially over, but we kind
Right.
of have a good idea of how every team stands.
Right.
And you look at the East, I think what's going to be interesting to monitor is how are the teams who are expected to take a step back going to actually fare. And by that I mean the Celtics, they're obviously going to be a lot worse than they were a season ago. They're kind of in this like weird transition year while they wait for Tatum to come back. Then
Right.
you got Indiana without Halliburton.
Right.
Milwaukee, I think they'll still be competitive. I know they waived Dame, but getting Miles Turner and some of the signings they made were big as well. So I think you can't write off the teams that I just named. Like I think they're still going to be in a fighting stance. I think clearly, like at the top, you're going to have the Knicks, you're going to have the Cavs, you're going to have the Magic, who I love their addition
Yeah.
for Desmond
For,
Bain.
for sure. For
So
sure.
I think it's not going to be like a foregone conclusion that the Raptors are in a play-in spot as much as we want to believe that, because I think the East is more competitive than what people think. Like when I look at the Eastern Conference right now, Daniel, like towards the bottom too, like I think
Right.
the only truly terrible teams are going to be the only truly terrible team are
Right.
going to be the Brooklyn Nets. Like I think
Right.
the Wizards had a very quietly very much had an underrated offseason. They got better. I mean, the Hornets improved. I'm actually going to
Right.
drop a Hornets video later today.
For sure.
So those bottom tier teams got better. The Hawks got a lot better. I think they're a top four team. I think the Bulls can maybe be in that conversation along with the Nets of being a bad team, just because I don't know what direction they're trying to pick. So I
Exactly.
think ultimately, I would be more inclined to say the Raptors are going to be a part of that plan, but I don't know if they're going to be like a top six team just because of how many good teams are going to be there. And also, you don't know how the Celtics, Pacers, and Bucks are going to fare. Some of the teams that
Right.
people thought were going to take a step back. Like, I think the Sixers are going to bounce back. You know, that was a team that obviously was tanking towards the end of last season. So I think as of right now, I'm more so leaning like the Raptors are for sure going to be a part of that playing equation. You would hope 7-8 rather than 9-10, but I think they will be in that playing picture as opposed to completely out of it and
Right.
not playing in any meaningful games in April.
No, I agree with you. It's still early, like you said, to assess where this team's going to ultimately stand. But by the end of next season, this upcoming season, that is, um, will Barrett, Barnes, Ingram, that whole lineup make sense? And ultimately, will they play well together? We'll have to wait and watch, right? And you'll see, you said it yourself, right? It's going to be really quickly to assess how these players are going to play in the first couple of weeks. So I do believe they're going to be a play-in team as well. But what do you make of the NBA free agency so far? I saw your post on TikTok how you were assessing the winners and the losers of the offseason. Which teams do you feel improved significantly in comparison to last season? Which ones absolutely didn't? Give me your take as well. Yeah,
Yeah, I think the biggest winners, a lot of them come from the West. I think the
definitely.
Nuggets did a phenomenal job getting the pieces around Jokic. I love the move that they made. Bringing in Cameron Johnson, who I think is a better player overall than MPJ. So I think they definitely upgraded. The Rockets, clear cut winners. You just look at the big
Right.
move,
Yeah.
KD, even getting a Kobe the other day. Just got so many like defensive wings that you can just throw at the opposition.
Right.
KD obviously going to be a huge uplift to that offense. They were able to get him without surrendering any of their enticing young guys. They brought back Van Vliet on a very good deal, restructuring that deal, of course. So it's like I think those are clearly the winners. I want to throw the Clippers in that as well. I know people
Sure.
clown the Clippers, but like that
Right.
was a team that wasn't supposed to do much of anything this offseason, but they quietly had a very good offseason, bringing in a backup big for Zubats and Brooke Lopez. Obviously, trading away Powell, who was big for them, but I think they really needed a power forward, and Collins is going to mesh well with James Harden. And then you look at some of the vets they bring in, Chris Paul reunited. I think that's going to be cool. He's going to be running your second unit. And then Bradley Beal, I think he's going to benefit from a change of scenery. So those are some of the bigger ones. I would like my biggest winners in the West. And then to add to that as well, The Atlanta Hawks. Like, I think the Atlanta Hawks are going to be a top four team in the East. They
Definitely.
really
Yeah,
much improved. Like, I love the deal for Porzingis. If he stays healthy, it's a big if, I know, but
I
he's
know.
going
Yeah.
to just add such a nice element playing alongside Trae Young. Getting Nikhil Alexander Walker was huge. Luke Kennard, like, they really upgraded their roster. This is the best roster I think Trae Young has ever had. And we know,
Yeah,
like,
definitely. Yeah.
he
Yeah.
last time he had a competent roster around him of guys who can, shoot and play make. Like, they ended up getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I
Yeah.
think they very much won the offseason as well. In
Yeah.
terms of biggest losers, I would say the Warriors right now. Like, it's very
Yeah.
weird. They haven't done anything, and the Kaminga
Yeah.
situation continues to loom. I don't know if that's going to get resolved anytime soon, but it's like they're kind of just banking on what they have already. I think it's unfair to like put all those expectations on just Steph and Jimmy at this stage of their careers. So I really expected them to be aggressive to try to maximize Steph's whatever's left of Steph's career. I know they're kind of limited with what they can do because their big move is Jimmy, but I would say them are in that conversation for being one of the biggest losers. And really, like, I would just say them, and I guess Chicago too. Like, they didn't really pick a direction. They're kind of just still like in no man's land, and
Right.
they continue to just be one of those teams you can't figure out. And the same with Sacramento. Like, I think they are stuck in the middle and they kind of haven't chosen a direction. And maybe that's a team that sees it through in the first couple of months, like the Raptors, and then they decide, okay, like, we're gonna sell and we're gonna like offload
Right.
Sabonis, rebuild. So
Yeah.
that's how I would categorize it. But overall, I think the biggest winners, most of them came from the West, with the Hawks, I think, primed to take a significant step forward in the East.
No, yeah, I agree with you completely. I think, yeah, the Rockets definitely got a lot better with the Kevin Durant deal. That was a surprising move. They gave up a lot, for him, in Jalen Green. Phoenix, I mean, they got a lot of guards, but I mean, they offloaded Bradley Beal to the Clippers, and the Clippers now have, like, I believe, the oldest team in the league. They got Brooke Lopez as well in the offseason, and they added John Collins for Norman Powell, got shipped off to the Heat. A lot of good trades. Denver got better, like you said, with Cam Johnson coming and in contrast to MPJ, who's going to the Nets. The East, I think, is going to be competitive, but I feel like it's a lot more open for the Raptors to get into that play-in spot, like we just talked about. I do feel like, like teams like the Brooklyn Nets, the Chicago Bulls, who were like near the play-in spots, in the few last years. Now they're like going to be dead last in the league, and then you see the surprising teams like the Detroit Pistons. If they did so well on the offseason as well, they can squeak into that play-in team as well. So we'll see what the NBA season's gonna unfold this upcoming season for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the main reason why I can't just automatically bid the Raptors into that top six is they're really the only situation where, like, you don't have a sample size of their players playing with each other. Like, every other
Right.
team that's projected to be in the top six, they've made additions, but their core, they've had a significant sample size together where you know
Right.
what you're getting from them. Like, you look at the Knicks core, the Cavs core, even the Magic core. I know they're adding a new player in Bane, but like the core of Paolo and Franz Wagner, they have a significant sample size together. Whereas the Raptors, they have this big addition of Ingram, but barbecue with Pirtle, very limited in sample size just because of
Right.
the situation of the last 2 years, right? Injuries,
Yeah.
strategically tanking. So that's the biggest kind of question mark coming in, where the Raptors are in a very unique situation because they do have one of the highest payrolls. They're projected to be a tax team. They do have a lot of talent, don't get me wrong, but we haven't seen them play with each other. Like, even besides Ingram, their core guys, we haven't seen a big enough sample size of those guys playing together like some of these other teams that are projected to be higher than the Raptors. So that's why, like, it's one of those things where it could work out beautifully, like in a perfect
Right.
world, if we have
Yeah.
it our way. Like, they're booming out of the gate. It's like, damn, like, this team's much better. Or it could become a disaster, especially when you consider some of these contracts and what they're making. And like, Rich Paul basically stated the other day in that interview, I think it was on Sirius XM, like, basically like admitted to like ripping off the Raptors, saying like we knew like Brandon Ingram wasn't going to get that deal in free agency, and
Right.
obviously the Raptors paid him accordingly. And Emmanuel Quickley, that contract doesn't look so hot right now, so he's expected to have a big year. So the Raptors, they continue to kind of find themselves in these non like in these contracts that are not ideal for them, and we'll see if that in turn doesn't hurt them or hurts them deeply. So I think that's why like they're going to be expected to compete, and there's going to be like an expectation right out of the gate. They got to perform, because if they don't, especially under new management with Masai gone, like they're going to want to see results if they're projected to be a tax team. Like if this team is barely like in the plan or in the plane even at that with this current group, I think that's going to suggest that changes are made, because really when you look at what the team's making, and I know I'm rambling here, but like you look at what the team's making, it's like they got to be a top 6 team, right? If you're already going to be a like projected to be a tax team. So that's why like there's going to have to be significant results this season. Like it's
Yeah.
that like that's literally the how the season's going to go, for better or for worse.
No, no, I completely agree. And you touched on Masai, and I actually have a question about Masai Ujiri leaving the organization. Do you think that the Raptors are more leaning towards a full rebuild or a quick retool to go into the playoffs again, especially with Masai Ujiri leaving the organization? Did you feel like it was an extreme move for like MLSC to get rid of Ujiri, or do you feel like it was the right move for them to get rid of Ujiri?
Yeah, like my heart, just the personal side of things. Obviously, seeing him go, it hurts, because like I don't care how bad he was over the last couple of years.
Right.
Still brought this team to the apex. Like he still accomplished the ultimate goal, and that's
Yeah.
something that not a lot of people can say. Like he
Yeah.
brought a championship to Toronto. I don't know if I can confidently say we're gonna ever have another championship in our lifetime
Right.
as a Raptors fan. I hope I'm wrong on that, but like he
Yeah.
accomplished that goal, and like you look at even besides that, consistent winning seasons from this moment he took over. The Raptors were one of the winningest franchises, obviously, before they went into their rebuild or retool, however you want to categorize it. So it's like
Yep.
they were consistently a playoff team,
They were. Yes. Yeah.
and they won the championship. But you look at the business side of it, just thinking about it logically, yeah, like the last 5 years, I would say, after that, after the bubble, like there haven't been a lot of good decisions. Like the team has struggled, a lot of questionable calls, some of the contracts. Not only that, like even the trades. Obviously, it's unfair to assess the Siakam return, because if Brandon Ingram ends up being a star for this team, then that works itself out. But let's just say Brandon Ingram doesn't pan out. All of a sudden, it's like you look at that Siakam return, it goes down as one of the worst trades. Like you
Does.
look at
Yeah.
what
For sure.
Siakam means to the Pacers,
Yeah.
and then even the Anunoby return. Like I'm not even sold on that being an even keel trade, because Anunoby is such a big piece for what the Knicks have been doing, and I think the Knicks might be in the NBA Finals. So it's
Yeah.
like
Sure.
if Quickley doesn't take a significant step forward, which we're all waiting for, and Barrett kind of fizzles out, that trade looks bad in hindsight, especially when you consider, I think it was the Grizzlies a few seasons ago that were rumored to be willing to give up like 3 firsts for OG, but Masai just kind of
Right.
stubbornly, I guess you can put it, like held off and didn't want to, extend Siakam. So then that put a lot of pressure for them to trade him instead of losing him for nothing. So there were a lot of like mistakes and just mishandling of assets over the last couple of years that justifies, okay, like that's why he's on the way out. Like you look at this team, like they're projected to be a tax team, and they're not even for sure to make it to the top 6. So obviously all the things that led up to this point was Masai's doing. So I think it was time for a change. I think his time ran its course. I think it's time for kind of a fresh new vision. But that being said, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with that presidency vacancy. Like, is
Right.
that going to be Bobby Webster, or is it going to be an external guy? Are they going to go with somebody else to kind of have a different perspective, a different vision? Because I think if they stay with Webster and they just, have him the president, which I think is a real possibility, you'll kind of have a lot of the Masai ideologies. I know they differed in some of the decisions, but you'll have that Masai flair still with this team. Whereas if you go completely with a new person in a different direction, then you can see some substantial changes over the course of time. But I think for right now, like I said, they're going to give this group a go. But if they fizzle out of the gate and struggle, I think we could see some major changes at the trade deadline, starting with trading Barrett. Maybe that even lingers into Quickley. Who knows? But
Great.
that's why I think
Yeah.
this season is going to be very interesting because
Yeah.
we could see either nothing play out and kind of keep things as is, or a lot of major changes.
Yeah, I completely agree. But on the other side, Luca, we have to take into consideration that we do have a young core, and they played amazing in summer league. I love Chomchi's game. Like he's an unreal big. I think the Raptors. I think you came out with a post on your YouTube channel saying we got like this a steal in Chomchi, and we absolutely did. And if Barrett and Quickly don't take that lead, I feel that the young guys could step in easily and take that lead. Some of them are coming into their first year, second year, third year. They're brand new into the NBA. Do you feel like if Barrett and Quickly don't, step up, will the younger guys definitely come and like save the day, or no? Like they'll have to recess the entire team.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to ask like for the younger guys to step in immediately, especially since like this team is expected to be competitive. That's why it's like a weird dynamic. It's like the Raptors didn't go through a traditional rebuild. They kind
Right,
of like skipped the line, if you will. That's
right.
why the Brandon Ingram trade at the time was a little bit confusing. So I think, yeah, if Barrett and Quickly underperform, I think the Raptors they will continue to retool. They will try to trade those guys to bring in others. But in terms of your point about the younger guys, yeah, like they've shown us a lot of good things. I think for now, like they can step into the rotation and be excellent second unit guys, but I don't think they're going to make the transition quickly into like all of a sudden being starters. But you look at the second unit, I think it looks really good. Like I'm excited. I'm not ready to anoint them bench mob 2.0, but like Jamal Shed, he is really gonna
Solid
thrive in
backup.
second
Yep.
year. Like he's the definitive backup point guard. Jacoby Walter. I know we saw a couple of or one breakout game from him offensively in summer league. He's expected to take that next step. Grady Dick, I still have my question marks about. If he's
Same.
not a consistent enough shooter,
Right.
defensively he is a liability, and that's where I think Jacoby could overtake him this season with because he's committed defensively as well. Abaji's an interesting guy because of his contract. That could be a guy who could be traded if the Raptors struggle, but he's going to be a great defensive presence. And then Colin Murray Boyles, I think, is going to have ample opportunities as kind of Scotty Barnes's backup. And then Chomchi, yeah, I'm probably the most high. I would say if I had to like do a pecking order, I would say like I'm most high and sold on like Shed, Walter, and Chomchi in that conversation. I
Same.
know Mobile had some standout
Yeah.
games in summer league, but I'm still not like entirely sold on him just because like of his finishing ability and like can he be consistent. So like I still have my question marks about him. But in terms of like the young guys, Shed, Jacoby Walter, and Chomchi, like those are the three guys that I'm very much like in on. Chomchi, like maybe that's why the Raptors didn't, or waited to get a backup center or didn't draft a backup center because they have big plans for Chomsky. Like, I don't think he's
Yeah.
going to step into that role this season, but I think we could see him get spot minutes. And then the season after that, I could see him being a primary backup big before he continues to grow. Like, the dude's still a teenager, which is crazy. So, like, we got to have patience with him. But I would say those three. And then, of course, CMB, like, we got to wait and see. Like, I have my question marks about him because he can't shoot right now, but I
Right.
think he can develop into a solid player. So, I think right now the expectations are can these guys just be consistent rotation players? Can they be
Yep.
consistent bench pieces? And I think you could say yes for now about Shed and Jacoby Walter and Abaji, of course, like as
Right.
being those guys. And then some other guys are going to have opportunities to show what they can do. So it will be interesting to see how the young guys battle it out to get some of those bench spots, consistent bench roles with this team because the bench unit, as we know, it's very important. And historically, when looking at the Raptors when they were good, they always had strong benches. So if the
Right.
Raptors are going to be good this season, they're going to need a strong bench, and it starts with those younger guys.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We'll see how the younger guys fit into the picture for the big, for this upcoming season for the Raptors. We'll see how quickly and Barrett will they take those next steps. We'll see. We'll see how these Raptors play this upcoming season for sure. Luca, going to my second last question. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this in our first meeting, but I wanted to know how do you deal with hate culture in this industry when you get like negative comments or people just you know talking bad about you, about a specific, take you have on a specific team, or, how do you deal with hate culture in the media?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think everybody has their different ways of dealing with it. Like I would definitely say when I was younger, kind of coming up in the industry, it affected me a lot more. But now I have a better grasp on things. Like obviously if I see comments and I know they're just troll comments, I dismiss them. If it's constructive feedback and criticism, I will take account for some of it. But a lot of it is just noise. And I've learned that you could do one or two things. You could either read them, and I do read comments, and just develop a habit of not being over reactionary to them, or just completely ignore them. Like I know guys in this industry who they don't read their comments, and
Right.
that's okay too. But if you are going to look at that stuff and you do see bad comments, you know it comes with the nature of this business. Like everybody who's successful in this business, they're not going to bat 1,000 when it comes to just receiving positive comments to hate
Right.
comments. You look at all the greats, it favors hate comments, and it's sad to say, but that's just the reality. So it's like coming into this business, I knew that was the case. You develop a thicker skin over time. Obviously, when you're young and upcoming, it affects you a lot more than when you're later in your career. And it just comes down to your confidence level. Like if you know you're doing your best job, if you know that you're putting forth your best effort and you're getting better every single take, every single video, then you know a lot. Like it won't affect you. So it comes down to that reassurance. It's like don't develop your identity, don't develop your self worth by what other people are saying. Develop it within. And I know it's easier said than done because we live in a digital age and all these things are in your face. Because like I say, don't look at your comments, but it's kind of hard. Like you put out a YouTube video or TikTok, your curiosity peaks. You're gonna want to see what your own comments say about you. So I think it's just an ongoing mental battle. Like you just got to decipher, okay, which comments are worth investing in and which comments are just there for a quick acknowledgement and then dismissal. Because I think that's what you have to do. Like you start losing the battle when you let the comments get to you. Like you look at again, like all the best people in this industry, they get significant amount of hate comments, and it's just one of those things that you got to accept and learn how to deal with. There's no use trying to battle back. There's no use trying to eliminate it. It's always going to be there. So you just got to be like so self-confident in yourself that like seeing bad comments here and there won't affect your mindset and your performance going forward.
No, I agree. I agree. Look over short on time, 5 minutes left, but I'm going to go to my last question. What advice would you give to any aspiring broadcasters and content creators who are looking to go into this industry?
Yeah, I would say utilize social media. It's the future. It's the now. That's the biggest way you can get recognized. I think the old traditional way of like relying on kind of the standard approach, it has died significantly. It's like you want to work for a major company. It's like show what you can do so you have a portfolio. Like start putting out TikTok, start putting out YouTube videos, start creating the content you want to create and the types of things you would want to do at a company. And that will speak volumes of your skill set. Editing your own videos, doing your own content, producing your own content. Like all that is the best practical way of getting a head start and a jump in this industry. So I think that's the biggest thing I can say. Like we have these platforms at your disposal, whereas like people who grew up in the other generations, they didn't have that. They kind of had to just go through the traditional way of just applying to jobs and all that. But now it's like while you're still like applying for jobs, looking for different opportunities, it's like create something of your own, because I think that's where this thing is headed. I truly think that's where media is headed. I think you're seeing a lot of people go independent now with media, and that has its pros because you're able to control what you can control. You can do what you like, and if you can get it to a point where you monetize it and make money off it, like that's the best of both worlds, just because of like how competitive, how saturated the market is. I think like right now we're in an age where like you are your own brand. So like look at you
Right.
at the show. You've started the show, you're growing it, which is great. I would say continue doing that, because like who knows, this can end up being your gig over the next 5 years, right? If you just eat dirt for a little bit, continue to grow it, 5 years from now, you might be doing this full time. So that's my biggest piece of advice. Like start growing your channels, put out content every single day, and start growing your brand, because that's the safest way, or the most I would say the best way of getting your name out there and also creating something that you own that you can then monetize and hopefully, make it your thing. So yeah, just more content is more. Just keep
Exactly.
pumping it out, and you'll get better over time for sure.
For sure. I agree, man. I agree. Luca, thank you for your advice. That was Luca Rosano, everyone. You can reach out to Luca through his social handles. I'll put all of them down below in the description so you can connect with him if you want to. Thanks so much for coming to the show, Luca, again. This means a lot to me. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it, Daniel. All the best.
All the best, man.